What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and yesterday we talked about my favorite trade targets for this week, but it takes two to tango. You cannot buy a player without selling a player from your own team. So today we are going to talk about my 7 favorite sells before week 3 of the fantasy football season. Some of these guys sell highs, some of them sell lows, but across the board, these are the guys that I would be looking to move ahead of week 3 of the fantasy football season. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. And our first sell candidate here is going to be Kyren Williams. Now, the way that I go about making these videos is I do my rest of season rankings over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. My rest of season rankings are there. Later on today will be my week 3 rankings. You get my waiver wire article every week. I update my weekly rankings on Sunday as well. All of that and more, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You can find that in the description and the comment section down below. I have Kyren Williams around RB 18 to 20 here rest of season, and how I make this video is I rank these players, and then I look around the industry at the consensus rest of season rankings, and Kyren Williams is still like a back-end RB1, is like the RB 11 to 13 on a lot of these rankings lists, and I just don't agree. Now, of course, am I a little bit biased because I wasn't into Kyren Williams to begin with? Yes, but the usage nightmare that we thought could happen has been coming true here, where we have a bunch of things going on. First, across the bottom, Coach Speak Index, Sean McVay on the ideal split between Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. I think that you're looking for, what you're looking for is something around a 65 to 35 ratio for those guys. I think you want Kyren playing about 2/3 of the time and Blake Corum the other third. And this is a big deal because Kyren Williams isn't an efficient player, right? Like, he is not explosive. He thrives, in his whole fantasy role and why he's been so good is that he's going to get 80% of the snaps and he's going to get all of the red zone looks. Well, now we have this as well from Ryan Heath. Kyren Williams finally lost red zone work. He evenly split carries with Blake Corum inside the 20-yard line, 3-3, with Corum getting the touchdown. And then on top of that, we have a 64% snap rate, down from 81% in week 1 for Kyren Williams. And as of right now, Kyren Williams has a 0.53 yards per out run. That is brutal efficiency through the air, 3.8 yards per carry. And despite Blake Corum only having 6 carries to Kyren Williams' 35 carries, they both have the same amount of 10-plus yard runs, with Blake Corum having 2 and Kyren Williams having 2. So Blake Corum has been the more explosive runner. Kyren Williams has been inefficient yet again. And now, instead of being this volume sponge touchdown monster, he's just a fine RB2 that is the head of a 65-35 backfield split, which to me is not the RB12 rest of season. Like, that's just not good enough usage, and he's not a good enough player for that price to make sense. So I would be looking to sell. Now, we are going to be looking at the trade database from fantasycalc.com here. We're going to look at redraft leagues, 1 quarterback, 10 to 14 teamers, half and full PPR, and we'll look at 2-for-1s and 1-for-1s when it comes to Kyren. I don't know why Quentin Johnston's popping up here, but we're going to have to refresh. And I will have this link in the comments. I had people ask on this last video. I'll have a link to this trade database in the comment section down below. It seems like some of you guys do like me looking at real trades. Like, this is real trades from, like millions of fantasy football leagues worldwide here. So what can you sell Kyren for? You can add, Kyren and Ferguson for Jacobs, easily, yes. Kyren for Dobbins and Flowers, easily, yes. Like, I think that Dobbins can give you comparable production for Kyren, and then you also then get Zay Flowers. Now, this is a really weird league. It's a start 4. I don't even know what that's got to be wrong. But, yeah, give me Dobbins and Flowers over Kyren. If I needed a wide receiver, I would take Garrett Wilson over Kyren, but I'm not crazy about Garrett Wilson. You guys know that. I would do Kyren straight up for Ashton Genty, no doubt. Kyren and Brian Thomas for JT. Wow. I love this move. You guys will notice, I got a question. Well, why isn't Brian Thomas on your buy video? Well, for me, Brian Thomas, you guys know I love Brian Thomas, but at the same time, this usage through 2 weeks, I think this is a good time to talk about Brian Thomas. This usage through 2 weeks has been great, but when you don't make good on your usage, that volume isn't going to just sustain. Like, it's kind of the opposite of why we liked Bucky Irving so much going into the season, is that when you have efficiency, you then earn your volume. Well, if you are getting a boatload of volume and then you aren't delivering on that, that volume isn't going to sustain. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be bad or that he's going to bust, but he can only do this for much longer until the volume doesn't sustain. And then you also have the fact that he has some kind of wrist injury, which we saw last year. Tyreek Hill had a wrist injury, and it completely screwed up his entire season. So when you have to catch the ball and you are shying away from contact over the middle and you come up with a wrist injury, things start to add up. All right, so I'm going to be honest. I don't know how long my face was like frozen there for a second, but I was talking about Brian Thomas Jr. I think that he's spooky. He is a buy low on everybody's list, and if he's a buy low for everybody, then you can actually probably sell him, not sell low or sell high, but like sell him at a fine market price. And if I could sell Brian Thomas for Drake London, I would. If I could sell Brian Thomas and Kyren like this for Jonathan Taylor, I would. Now, I'm not saying go find Brian Thomas on your team and sell him immediately. He's just not a buy for me. Like, I'm fine holding on to him. I'm also fine if I can get out for equal value, I would. But that's where I'm at. So this one, like adding Kyren to Brian Thomas to get JT, who I'd have as like the 105, 106 rest of season, I do like that move. Now, moving on to our next sell here is going to be another running back. And I think when we talk about sells, I think that running backs right now as sells is probably a great move. Not because you shouldn't want running backs on your roster, but because if you're in a spot where you have a surplus of running backs, maybe you have like a James Cook and a Saquon, and then on top of that you have like a Hubbard in your flex, or maybe you have guys like Scatabo and Bill Krosky-Merritt emerging on your bench that you feel good about, and now you can move somebody like Chuba Hubbard. And I think that there's like a billion wide receiver threes right now. Like when I have to sit down and rank from like Garrett Wilson through like Marvin Harrison Jr. through Chris Olave, Calvin Ridley, and I'm not even saying these names in order, but like George Pickens, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jameson Williams, like it is excruciating to rank that list of players, because from like wide receiver 20 to like wide receiver 35, the margin is so thin and it feels like there's a dime a dozen, right? There's like no scarcity on those assets, so they're tough to sell. But I think running backs, like right now, people are hurting with Aaron Jones. People are hurting because the rookie running backs, right? Like if you were relying on RJ Harvey or Trayvon Henderson, they're all of a sudden scrambling for running back points. And I think that this is a good time. These early season producers, like your Kyren Williams, like your Chuba Hubbards, I think make a lot of sense in trade talks here. And here's why with Chuba Hubbard. He has been very lucky with garbage time touchdowns. He now has 2 touchdowns through 2 games. Both of his touchdowns have been receiving touchdowns with 6 minutes or less in the fourth quarter, just like purely garbage time performance. And you look across the bottom at my tweet here, among 35 running backs with 15 or more rush attempts, 3.7 yards per carry, that's 20th. Rushing yards over expected per attempt, minus 0.3, 23rd. Success rate, 30.8%, 28th. Missed tackles forced. And he's, one of the backs that has more carries than, 15 plus carries. So this isn't even a rate stat. Like missed tackles forced on the amount of carries that he's had, he should be higher. He has just 2 missed tackles forced on, I think like over 20, 25 carries. Only 1 run of 10 plus yards, also 25th. Like it's just, of course, a lot of this comes down to bad offensive line play and being in a bad offense, but that's the name of the game, and he's thriving off of touchdowns right now. Without his touchdowns, he'd be at like 12 to 13 points per game as like a fine RB2. And when we look at this team, like you can't bank on Hubbard scoring a touchdown in every game. Like he needs to get there on explosive plays and PPR upside, and he just hasn't really. I just can't bet on that over an entire season. Here in terms of implied points this week by Vegas, even against like the Falcons, who are like a fine defense, a neutral opponent inside of a dome here, or at least I think the Panthers are on the road versus the Falcons. They're projected for the 3rd least points this week. Or actually, no, it's going to be at Carolina, but still, you guys get the point where at home, they're still implied for 19 points, which is just absolutely nothing when we talk about fantasy football. Now, in terms of selling Chuba Hubbard, hoping that my camera doesn't pause here, we can see what he's going for in leagues right now is, wow, Hubbard and Devontae for Neighbors all day. Very easy. Hubbard for Marvin Judkins. That's about as cheap as I can go. That's as cheap as I can go. If this is a league where you really need the running back help, or not like, obviously if you're selling Hubbard, you don't need the running back help, but it's really more so if you need like the wide receiver flex help, and then you can just take on Judkins, and like you don't have to start Judkins right away. I do like that move. Hubbard, I would take Chase Brown over Hubbard all day. Wow, Hubbard and Tet for Achane. I would do that, but that's about as expensive as I'll pay. Hubbard and Marv for Puka, I would as well. Hubbard for Trey McBride. If I need a tight end help, I would. Herbert and Hubbard for Bucky, yes. but that's just because I don't really value quarterbacks that heavily. Hubbard for Bowers, I would. Hubbard for Devontae. If I needed a wide receiver, I would. And then Hubbard and Jennings. So I just said I would be selling Brian Thomas. For this price, I'd actually probably buy Brian Thomas for Hubbard and Jennings to get into BTJ. So I don't know. Brian Thomas is going to be one of the more like polarizing players this week. There's some prices where I'd be like, okay, if I can sell him for what I paid for at the draft, I probably would. But if I could buy him for Hubbard and Jennings, I think that's more than fair. Now, our next sell candidate here in week 3 is going to be some of the Lions. And we have another running back here, David Montgomery, who I think is really thriving off of name value at this point, where, I don't know, he's somebody where, again, these running backs, I think there's some scarcity here. You can just sort of sell off of name value when it comes to somebody like David Montgomery. And this was the David Montgomery game script, and all he gave you was 13.1 PPR points. This was the Lions at home. They put up 50 points at home, and all he did was give you 13.1 PPR points. And why that's so important is because these are the games that Montgomery needs to pay off. Last year, there were 4 games where the Lions won by 14 or more points. In those games, David Montgomery averaged 19.2 points per game. This is the on a silver platter. David Montgomery gives you 18-plus points. And in this week, it came up dry. He has the 4th worst success rate in the NFL right now, 3.7 yards per carry to Jahmyr Gibbs' 5.4. He's fine, but he's got to hit in a game like this. So for me, he's just like a fine RB3 that I'd have in your like J.K. Dobbins area. And if I could sell for anything more than that, I would. When we look at what you can sell Montgomery for on the market, I think that he is one of these guys that has name value as like a steady player. Wow, Montgomery and Pollard for Odunze. I would, but that's pretty steep. Montgomery and Tet for JT without thinking. If I needed wide receiver help, I'm fine with Montgomery for JMO. Flowers over David Montgomery all day. Wow, Montgomery and T for Jacobs. Yeah, pretty easily. Montgomery for Trevion, yes, easily. That's just not going to happen. Montgomery for Rashee Rice. I like this. If you're 2-0 and you're not using David Montgomery, that's actually a beautiful idea. Montgomery and Warren for London easily. Anything else to got Montgomery and Ayuk for Igbuka, obviously, but that's just not on the table. Oh yeah, dude. Tucker Kraft is honestly, if the guy who has Kraft doesn't realize that Kraft is closer to Tyler Warren than Tyler Warren, McBride, Bowers, than he is close to like LaPorta, Kelsey, etc. Kraft's probably a decent buy. Like, of course you're like buying high, but Kraft for me, I would prefer him over George Kittle rest of season as like the tight end 4 in the same tier as Tyler Warren. So if like the trade calc here is saying like that's like pretty close, I would do Montgomery and like whoever your tight end is, whether that's Montgomery, TJ Hawkinson, Montgomery, LaPorta, Montgomery, Kelsey, Montgomery, Jawan Johnson for Kraft. I would do that all day long. And then we're also going to sell the other Lion here in Sam LaPorta. What a mustache on that picture, though. I'll give him that. But I'm really looking to sell all Lions not named Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Jameson Williams is probably fine. Like, he's never going to pop in your usage volume stuff, but he's also going to do 3 catches for 150 yards and a touchdown sometime. So him getting home last week, like, that's fine. But this is why I'm looking to sell LaPorta. He's just seen as this difference maker, right, where he's almost like closer to your Tyler Warrens. Like, you can go sell somebody on, get Sam LaPorta and upgrade your tight end position. For me, I have him in the same tier rest of the season as like Jake Ferguson and Jawan Johnson as like fine starts at tight end, but not somebody that I'd be drafting like the 5th or 6th round like he was in August. And I think that he's still probably perceived that way, is why I think that he's a sell. We look at his usage in terms of expected points per game at tight end. He's a tight end 11 after Zach Ertz. Now, we did just pump up Tucker Kraft. And you're like, well, Tucker Kraft's getting used in the same way. Well, Tucker Kraft doesn't have as much volume because he's scoring long touchdowns and like giving you big plays. So that's why he's not getting spammed with targets. And then on top of that, he looks really good, Tucker Kraft, in your utilization score over on Fantasy Life, which is a really cool metric that takes into account your route percentage, target share, catchable targets, ADOT, all of that, and puts out a usage score based on all of that. Tucker Kraft, of course, is 5th in this metric. Sam LaPorta is down in 13th after guys like JT Sanders and Kyle Pitts. So his usage isn't good. Yes, is he running the routes, but like a 19% target share, it's just not, like, it's fine. He's not going to, right now he's the like tight end 12 in points. He'll probably finish somewhere like, tight end 7 to tight end 12, but that's just not difference-making production. You can supplement that even with guys like Zach Ertz off of waivers if you needed to. So if you can sell it like that tight end 5 price tag that he probably goes for in rest of season rankings, I would be looking to make a profit on that. Let's see, because I think that he's probably trading at like a top 5 price, which again, like if I could sell that, I would. If you had any, like if you had Fannin, Jawan Johnson behind him, anything, like LaPorta for Pickens, to me that's pretty easily Pickens. LaPorta in a piece for Marv, I'd be fine with that. LaPorta for Debo all day. LaPorta for Tet all day. LaPorta for Devontae Smith all day. Like, I'd be looking to bolster my flex. I don't even like Hubbard, but you guys, like, I would do LaPorta for Hubbard easily. LaPorta for Dobbins, yes. LaPorta in a piece for Tyler Warren. I think that's probably the biggest thing I can, like, I don't think that's super doable, but if you can do LaPorta in a piece and then upgrade to Tyler Warren, Tucker Kraft, Trey McBride, or Brock Bowers, I think that's what you want to do, is you want to add to LaPorta and get into one of those top 4 tight ends, is kind of where my head is at. Sam LaPorta, Michael Pittman for Ladd McConkey. He was a buy for us yesterday. I would do that pretty easily as well. Now, another running back I'm looking to sell is James Conner. If somebody needs the running back points, Conner, just like last year, he was really efficient. He was explosive, good in missed tackles forced, all of that stuff. This year, he's not great. Like, I have this stat across the bottom here where James Conner through 2 weeks is at 3.2 yards per carry, down from 4.6 last year, minus 0.53 rushing yards over expected per attempt, down from plus 0.48. Success rate is down from last year. Explosive run rate is down from last year. Points per game is down from last year. Volume is down from last year. So he's just taken a step back here, and Trey Benson has taken this from like where James Conner last year had 65% of the snaps to now making it almost an even 50-50 split. And this was a game where the Cardinals dominated the entire time, so it wasn't even a pass-happy game script, and you still had Trey Benson, who had 100% of the 2-minute drill snaps and is kind of more of this passing down specialist, still eat into James Conner's workload at a 50-50 split. Now, James Conner, like Hubbard, has scored touchdowns, so he's gotten there in fantasy football, but still, he's probably closer to your DeAndre Swift, Jalen Warren tier than he is that upper echelon, like Alvin Kamara, high-end RB2, and if you can sell him in that RB2 range for that RB2 price tag, I would be looking to do that. Now, I think that he's still, I'm pretty optimistic of what he's going to sell for on the open market here when we check the trade database for James Conner. We have Tyreek Hill and James Conner for Jefferson. Yes, obviously. James Conner for Henderson. I don't hate that if I didn't need James Conner's points in my lineup. James Conner for Hampton. I would. I actually would. I think that's a good buy low on Hampton there. Connor for Egbuka, obviously. Connor and Tootin for Brian Thomas, obviously, but I don't know that that's really out there. Connor and Olave for Genti. I would do that as well if you can buy low on Genti there. James Conner and a piece for Kenneth Walker, easily. James Conner and Pittman for Odunze. I probably wouldn't, man. The price on Odunze is going up, huh? Does anything else stick out? Let's see. I mean, obviously James Conner for Brian Thomas, but that's just not on the table. James Conner and Josh Jacobs for Puka. That's really solid as well. And then we'll look at for one more here. What's this? James Conner and Dak for Debo. No. James Conner for Sutton. If I needed wide receiver help, yes. James Conner and a piece for Chase Brown, yes. It's obviously not going to be Elikyle Manor, but can you do James Conner and Marvin Harrison Jr. for Chase Brown? I would do something like that. Now, we're going to sort of do a 2-for-1 special on our last 2 trade targets here. We have Tyreek Hill, and we have Jalen Waddle. I'm just looking now. This is what I'll say. We did this on last week's episode, and I'm a goof for it. Look, Thursday night is tonight. The Dolphins play the Bills. Here's what I'll say. Your homework assignment for watching this video and making it this far is, if you have Tyreek or Waddle, kick the tires around your league. I'm not saying 100% you must sell them before tonight. What I'm saying is just see. Just see what the vibes are on the Dolphins right now. Because after losing 33-8 to the Colts, the sky was falling, and then the Dolphins put up 27 points this week versus the Patriots. And if I could sell on that optimism, I would. Like, maybe this defense is so bad they get into shootouts, but this offense still isn't that good. Even accounting for last week where their offense actually looked good, in offensive efficiency, they are still 26th in EPA per play, among one of the league's worst offenses in the NFL. Tyreek Hill is the wide receiver 44 in expected points per game. Expected points per game is just your volume, your targets, your ADOT. He should really only be scoring 10.4 points. Instead, he's the wide receiver 28, which is still not great. Like, he had a decent game, but it still wasn't amazing. Waddle to me is a sell as well. He's the wide receiver 54 in volume. He's the wide receiver 14 this past week with 17.8 PPR points. He's dealing with a shoulder injury as well. If I could just get out of the Dolphins' business outside of Devon Achane, that's what I'd be looking to do. If I could sell either of these guys to get into like Ladd, Tet, Odunze, Zay Flowers types, I definitely would. Now, if we look at what they are going for on the trade market, I have to assume like Tyreek Hill is still going to hold some name value even in 2025. He has a big game. Maybe some people are looking to buy. Let's see. What can you get for Tyreek Hill on the market here? We'll also look at Jalen Waddle as well, of course. So Tyreek and Connor for Jefferson, yes. Tyreek and Etienne for Puka, yes. I love that, by the way. I know that the calc's saying like this isn't even close, but if you can add to Tyreek and just upgrade to a much better receiver, I think that's amazing. Like Tyreek and Montgomery for Drake London, yes, all day. Tyreek and Javonte for Chase Brown, yes. Tyreek for Drake London straight up is crazy, but if you can do Tyreek and a piece for Drake London, I'd be looking to do that as well. And then let's see, is it going to make me refresh? Of course. So let's refresh it. And let's get Waddle in here and see what Waddle is going for. Waddle, I think Waddle is more of like your piece. Like Waddle is somebody you add. Like, can you do Waddle and Sam LaPorta to upgrade to Tucker Kraft? Is that on the table? Waddle for Worthy. I'm not interested in Worthy. I know that he's kind of a popular sell. Io Manor and Waddle for Olave, yes. Waddle for Olave straight up, yes. Waddle for J.K. Dobbins, yes. Waddle and Pitts for A.J. Brown, obviously, yes, but I don't think that that's actually realistic. Waddle and Kamara for Chase Brown, yes. Waddle and Sampson for Sutton, I actually like that. Waddle and Montgomery for A.J. Brown pretty easily. So, yeah, there's some deals out here that make some sense. Like, I'm not looking to, like, sell him for nothing, but I think both of these Dolphins receivers before the Thursday Night Football game, you can maybe get some decent value for, but that is going to do it for us today. That is our sell video. Of course, my rest of season rankings will be over on the Patreon, along with my week 3 rankings will come out later today over on the Patreon as well, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. That's all I got for today. If you enjoyed, subscribe, leave a like. Stats and starts tomorrow, and I will see y'all in next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, oh, ice around my body like I'm